features blacker than ever. Good evening. President Gorbachev has purged the Soviet leadership of 3 more of his personal problems tonight, and he's promoted his own reformers. Out from the Politburo go 2 of the old guard, the Ukrainian party chief, Mr. Vladimir Serbitsky, a survivor until tonight from the Brezhnev era. If the Ukraine is unhappy, Mr. Gorbachev may not survive. Also out, General Viktor Chebrikov, former head of the KGB, and Mr. Viktor Nikonov, the Agriculture Secretary. The farms have failed again. The special meeting of the Communist Party Central Committee also endorsed plans for radical change in the National Republic. They include the very unhappy Baltic states.
Tonight, as news of the Politburo reshuffle broke, it brought to a dramatic end a party meeting that many had seen as a watershed. Later, at the end of this 2-day party plenum, the Central Committee members emerged. The news of the changes was first revealed to ITN. This member told us they'd reached the very heart of the Politburo. It was only later that the Soviet public were told. A special television news flash confirming that 3 members had been retired from the Politburo. Earlier at today's session of the Central Committee meeting, Gorbachev spoke of the need for the unity of the party in the face of unprecedented difficulties. His strength in the party, his political dominance, has been underlined by these changes. For Gorbachev, such a move was dictated by the pace of his reform drive in the Soviet Union and the need to revitalize the leadership in the coming years. One of the 3 retired was Vladimir Serbitsky, the party boss of Ukraine and the sole political survivor from the Brezhnev era. The others were Viktor Nikonov, here on the right, a key figure in agriculture, and Viktor Chebrikov, a former boss of the KGB. All were seen as conservatives within the party. An embarrassed Gennady Gerasimov, the government spokesman, was forced to cancel a press conference after a 5-hour wait by journalists, an indication of the political sensitivity of tonight's event. The scale of the Politburo changes reflects the daunting task facing the party in this country. With ethnic divisions and a serious economic crisis, Gorbachev believes only a new leadership can offer real hope for the future. Robert Moore, News at 10, Moscow.
And now the latest from Robert Moore. Robert, the chief conservative, Mr. Ligatov, is still in position. Is that a sign of Mr. Gorbachev's weakness?
Well, it's very difficult to determine that. It's no question that this is the biggest reshuffle since Gorbachev came to power, and I think he's finally discredited the last of the Brezhnevites in political life in the Soviet Union. But the Politburo remains a complex mix of politics, and I would be reluctant to say that he's either significantly won all the votes of the Politburo now. It remains a complex structure all the same.
But the new men who have come in are his own men.
Indeed they are. I think now he's really moulded political life largely around him. And of course, one of the most significant elements of the plenum was a party congress, which is now being brought forward. That will allow him to bring his own men in at all levels of the party throughout the country, including at the Central Committee level.
Thank you, Robert. Alistair.
Britain is, after all, to be prosecuted by Brussels for not meeting European Commission standards on drinking water. The Environment Secretary, Mr. Chris Patten, who personally made the government's case against prosecution 2 days ago, says he's astonished. Labour and conservationists say it's good news for British consumers.
The timing of all this is deeply embarrassing for the government, not least because Mr. Patten spent yesterday and the day before personally pleading Britain's case with the EEC Commissioner. But the Commissioner, anxious to prove his muscle, was not to be moved.
That was our last weapon, had unfortunately to be used, but I think that it will contribute to what is important for environment and for people's health.
Mr. Patten's discomfiture is all the worse since he reckoned he'd actually arranged to get a postponement of the prosecution.
I'm disappointed. I think it's a very, very unfair decision. I think it's largely inexplicable in view of the discussions I've had with the Commissioner this week. We've got the biggest compliance program for the European Community Directive in Europe. We're investing millions, indeed billions of pounds in raising the quality of our water. We're complying as rapidly as we can. The Commission has at no stage suggested how we could do things more rapidly.
The fact that this has all happened as the flotation of the soon-to-be-privatised water companies approaches is only adding to Mr. Patten's blushes. So is the fact that Labour chose today to launch a huge onslaught against the government's whole green strategy. Tonight, Labour called the EEC move on water good news for the consumer and bad news for the government. In Birmingham earlier, Mr. Kinnock had launched an even wider attack.
You don't get much in the way of environmental sensitivity from a centralising, water and electricity privatising, market-mad government that makes nonsense of the planning laws and which prides itself on dodging European environmental standards. They are not going to be the source of a green transformation.
It so happens that just up the road from Birmingham and Mr. Kinnock today, the Green Party was gathering in Wolverhampton for its annual conference. The news from Brussels handed them a propaganda gift.
The government has been saying for some time that it's going to clean up its act. Now the pressure is there as the party of law and order. They must obviously welcome the law being taken into use against them.
Tonight, government sources are claiming that by the time the case actually comes up in 2 or 3 years, Britain will be so far along the road towards full compliance that the case itself will be meaningless. They're therefore calling the Brussels prosecution a sideshow. Michael Brunson, News at 10 in the West Midlands.
The intensive use of nitrate fertilizers by farmers is thought to be the source of most nitrate pollution in rivers. Already, the government is encouraging farmers in 12 experimental areas to use less or not to grow crops that require nitrate. Farmers put nitrates in the soil to boost growth. Most of the nitrates stay in the soil around the roots, but when the crop is harvested and the land ploughed, nitrates are released and filter into the underground water table. From there, they enter rivers and so drinking water. The worst affected areas are in the Midlands and in East Anglia.
The quickest way of achieving the levels required is by water treatment, or blending high nitrate water with low nitrate water. Changing farming takes a long time for the effects to feed through into water supply.
The government's £1.5 billion programme for treatment to remove nitrates from water may now have to be accelerated. And there are other challenges ahead from the group whose complaint started the European action.
Friends of the Earth have also complained about breaches of the standards for pesticides, for lead, for aluminium, and other things as well. And our complaints will lead to further action by the Commission against the British government. The process has started. The government is picking up its just reserves.
Today's reversal may not be the last headache the government faces in Brussels.
The French airline UTA is almost certain that a bomb blew its DC-10 out of the sky over the Sahara. 170 people were killed, at least 4 of them were British. There have been 2 phone calls claiming that a bomb was put on board by Islamic Jihad, the Iranian-backed terrorist group. The plane was en route from Brazzaville to Paris via Chad's capital N'Djamena. Radio contact was lost as the plane crossed the Chad-Niger border, and wreckage was eventually seen in a remote area north of Lake Chad.
Early this morning, anxious relatives waiting at the airport in Paris were given news they did not want to hear. A French military plane out searching for the DC-10 had spotted wreckage scattered over 70 square miles on the border between Chad and Niger. Flight 772 went missing soon after takeoff. It's the 3rd disaster involving a DC-10 this year, but the pilot had not reported problems, and officials are saying it was a terrorist attack.
I would say, if there had been a technical problem for which I can't see a reason, there would have been enough time to allow the crew to give a warning.
Later at the UTA headquarters, it emerged that in the last 24 hours, the airline had received 2 calls from a man claiming to be a member of the Iranian-backed Islamic Jihad. The airline say they are not taking the call seriously, but Islamic Jihad has been behind this kind of operation before.
It's certainly true that Islamic Jihad has bitterly attacked France for its policies in the Lebanon and, for example, made threats when the French government moved ships towards the Lebanese coast. But at the same time, an aircraft flying on this route in Africa is not the most obvious target.
French troop planes carrying doctors and medical supplies have now arrived at the scene of the wreckage. Aircraft investigators are expected to bring back proof that this was a terrorist attack. Joan Fairkettle, News at 10, Paris.
In Northern Ireland, another leaked document from the security forces has come to light. It's the 6th document to be made public. It was sent to 4 different people, along with the death threats from the banned loyalist paramilitaries, the Ulster Freedom Fighters. The Irish Prime Minister, Mr. Haughey, made his second statement on the leaks in 2 days. He said, "It's an appalling picture. The situation cannot be tolerated.
President Bush has declared a state of emergency in the U.S. Virgin Islands after the onslaught of Hurricane Hugo, and the U.S. Coast Guard has landed on St. Croix to restore order after reports of widespread looting from frightened tourists. Turning towards the United States across the Caribbean, advancing at 12 miles an hour with winds of more than 100 miles an hour. It's left behind at least 25 people dead and a trail of destruction. On the British island of Montserrat, there's almost total devastation. On St. Croix, law and order has virtually collapsed, and even the police have been looting shops. And in Puerto Rico, Hugo's winds have left 10,000 people homeless. Hugo is now on course to come ashore between Florida and North Carolina.
Montserrat has been devastated. There's hardly a building intact. There's hardly a family which hasn't lost almost everything.
Montserrat doesn't normally get hurricanes, and therefore people are inclined to take it rather lightly. But this time we got the word across. They did batten down, but because the storm is so extreme that even taking all the precautions that were reasonable, we still lost, as you can see, about 95% of our buildings.
Hurricane Hugo tore up everything in its path. Rains followed. The hospital was flooded. The injured are now treated outside. 8 islanders died when Hugo hit their homes. They're buried in a storm-swept cemetery. Offshore, the Royal Navy frigate Alacrity. Its helicopter crews search for the dead, circling what's left of Montserrat's exclusive homes.
The whole island has been, as the locals term, crashed by the force of the hurricane, and we are here trying to repair roofs and restore electrical power and telephones as well.
The hurricane winds have died down now. It'll take a week to clear the roads, a month to restore power, but it could be at least a year before the island gets back on its feet. The power of the hurricane was filmed by one of 200 British tourists who fled Antigua today. 2 islanders died here. A British couple escaped from this bedroom when a wall collapsed. Montserrat is now desperate for the 10 tons of supplies the RAF is preparing to land, and for the vehicles, boats and helicopters being organised by the British Embassy in Washington. This is the worst crisis in the island's recent history. Bill Neely, News at 10, Montserrat.
Mrs. Thatcher rebuked and warned the Japanese about trade barriers today. They said how wonderful she is, but has anything changed? A report next. Stuff. They like it over here, but what do they like to work for? And in Kenya, a pathologist insists Julie Ward was murdered. That's in a couple of minutes.
Okay. The buy crude oil, buy coconut oil, buy palm oil. How's olive oil? Then buy it and increase my mortgage payments in that way.
If you like to stay in control of your outgoings, try a NatWest flexible mortgage.
Goodbye. Sell sugar, sell soya beans. Yeah, sell whole pizzas. And reduce my mortgage payments in that way.
It lets you change your monthly payment according to your circumstances.
Sell everything. Gold, I want gold. Yep, I'm buying gold. By nickel, by zinc, by tin. Rock and roll. By wheat, by maize, by barley. No, the island. And increase my mortgage payments in that way.
Would you like tea or coffee, sir?
Good idea. I'll buy them both.
The new NatWest flexible mortgage for the ups and downs of life.
Begin surveillance. Sir, number 21 shows ambitious tendencies. Follow him.
What looks different? What's going on?
Mrs. Thatcher told Japanese businessmen in Tokyo today that they must open their markets or risk a trade war. She had 2 hours of talks with the Japanese Prime Minister, Mr. Toshiki Kaifu, about trade and about China and Hong Kong. The talks were said to be friendly.
Mrs. Thatcher was sampling Japanese high technology for herself today.
travelling in a bullet train capable of 150 miles an hour past Mount Fuji to the south of Tokyo and on to the Fujitsu electronics factory. Her message to the Japanese was that if they wished to continue their economic miracle, which has produced such technology, trade restrictions had to go.
A barrier is a barrier, whether you call it a cultural difference, a tradition, or anything else.
That rebuke was delivered straight to a lunch of Japanese businessmen, and she warned, too, that unless restrictions were lifted, the entire world trade system was in danger.
A solution must be, and I believe will be found, not just for the sake of Britain and Japan, but because so much else, indeed the future prosperity of the free world, depends upon it.
The reaction of the Prime Minister's audience was, in the circumstances, surprisingly warm.
That speech was wonderful. Please forgive me to express my personal impression. I met her some 10, 11 years ago. Since then, she becomes faster and more attractive, and her speeches becomes more and more persuasive.
Later, at the Prime Minister's residence, she met another apparent fan, Prime Minister Taifu, and she took the same message to him. The talks were friendly, but the Japanese seemed far from accepting the urgency of the Prime Minister's words. And as Mrs. Thatcher walked barefoot to a traditional dinner with her host, a solution to the trade dispute seemed a long way off. So even though Mrs. Thatcher and her hosts remain on the best of terms, her message to them was a blunt one. It is that unless the Japanese change their habits, there could be a worldwide trade war. Peter Allen, News at 10, Tokyo.
Mike Denke believes he's contributing to the Japanese economic miracle in Britain. As he drives into the Panasonic television factory in Cardiff, his thoughts turn to the tough production targets he and his team have to meet.
Every day is a challenge. What's on my mind is to set out the daily plan and trying to put the family in the back of my mind for the day and look towards the daily production targets.
Habitually early for his 7:45 start, he's responsible for 2 production lines. His workers are expected to produce a TV set every 90 minutes, each spending 22 seconds on their allotted task. Every worker is trained to be ambidextrous to achieve maximum speed. Mike believes the success of the company is the result of teamwork, top to bottom, Japanese style.
I think it's got great advantages, the way they've created teamwork. I think it all hinges on, I think a lot of people in the company will tell you exactly the same thing, because it's true. It's the teamwork and the atmosphere they generate.
Meal breaks are strictly regulated. A siren sounds and Mike leads his staff off immediately to a canteen for a 40-minute lunch break. There, senior managers and shop floor workers eat side by side. Then it's straight back to work and time for Mike to brief his foreman. They share his enthusiasm for the Japanese experience.
We've all got to go through job security here, and we're treated very well by the Japanese staff.
The challenge is to get the production figures, the targets to set you. I found in British companies you didn't have targets to achieve, so at the end of the day, it was quite difficult to measure how well you were doing.
Before the day's out, the Japanese managing director visits Mike to check those target figures. Pay is performance-related, and today he's satisfied. So is Mike, his team having produced the 3,000 TVs needed to hit the target. And he even has the satisfaction of walking out past the fruits of his labour. Penny Marshall, News at 10, Cardiff.
Here, the Transport Secretary, Mr. Cecil Parkinson, admitted today that the construction costs for the tunnel rail link are soaring. The link will now cost nearly 3 times the original estimate of £1.2 million.
On one side of the channel today, the French were unveiling their tunnel trains, which will ply the journey from Paris to London at nearly 200 miles an hour. Here, as BR unveiled their latest high-speed train for the East Coast, there were fresh doubts about who'll pay for the link to the Channel Tunnel. Ever since the route was announced, locals have fought to revise it. Rerouted tunnels under London and longer tunnels in Kent have pushed up the cost significantly. Originally, the whole line was estimated at £1.2 billion. Now that would build just over a third of it. The revised total to finish the project over £3 billion. And compensation payments to local residents are well above original estimates. There are still thousands of cases being forced. Chris Williams is challenging BR's refusal to pay compensation. His flat currently overlooks a quiet suburban line, but soon the green field beyond will be the mouth of the London Tunnel.
I put the house on the market. It has been on the market since April. I haven't had a single person come to look round. and I haven't had any help from British Rail.
BR says after 5 months on the market, he hasn't yet proved his flat is unsellable. If they do eventually pay, it'll be yet another addition to the cost of the link. The government's own act forbids them from paying for the tunnel, but many analysts think Transport Secretary Cecil Parkinson might have to find a way of subsidising the link.
I don't want to interfere by expressing a view about whether the government should or should not interfere. The ground rules have been clearly laid out. The parties know them. They think the project is worthwhile. They're working to deal with difficulties.
And with stiff competition from ferries and airlines, the passengers themselves may be reluctant to pick up the tab for the cost of making the tunnel links more environmentally friendly.
The American airline Pan Am has been fined £400,000 for breaches in security at Heathrow and Frankfurt airports after the Lockerbie bombing last year. The American Federal Aviation Authority imposed the fine because of poor security during the screening of passengers and their baggage before boarding planes at the two airports.
Mr. F.W. de Klerk today called for a totally new South Africa as he was sworn in as state president. He pledged to remove race discrimination, but he said the radicals have no role in the peace process. He did not announce any further moves toward the release of Nelson Mandela.
In a Pretoria church.
I, Frederik Willem de Klerk, do swear to be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
There was more ceremony than substance to the inauguration, but while President de Klerk made no dramatic announcements, he pledged again to implement real reform, and he appealed to South Africa to be given a chance.
My call to the international community is take note of what is happening in South Africa. There is a determination amongst millions of South Africans to negotiate fair and peaceful solutions. Use your influence constructively to help us attain that goal.
But out on the range in South Africa's heartland, die-hard conservatives like Jan Villiers, who are now a minority of a minority, reacted to President de Klerk's message with bitter resentment.
The white people is getting poorer and poorer day by day. And I think that the future for the whites in this country is as dark as night.
And Mr. de Klerk's speech cut little ice in the Black Township.
There's nothing different that he said as compared to the others. And one of the main things that we expected him to talk about was maybe the release of Nelson Mandela, but he said nothing, absolutely nothing about it.
President de Klerk has asked for time. The anti-apartheid opposition has given him 6 months to turn words into action. Kevin Dunn, News at 10, South Africa.
In Kenya, a Home Office pathologist has told the inquest into the death of the British tourist Julie Ward that she was definitely murdered. Professor Austin Gresham said the Kenyan evidence had been deliberately altered.
The evidence Professor Gresham gave to the inquest completely refutes the claim by the Kenyan authorities that Julie Ward fell victim to wild animals. One of the world's leading pathologists from Cambridge University, the professor used these diagrams of the injuries to Julie's skull to prove that she was decapitated from behind by one single swipe with a sharp instrument used with considerable force.
She was dismembered and the pieces were burned, and if that isn't a strong indication of murder, I don't know what is.
The professor also condemned attempts to alter the report of the police pathologist's first post-mortem on Julie. He concluded she was murdered. His report has been crudely changed to make it look like the injuries were caused by wild animals.
I mean, we would regard it as an amazingly bad bit of medical practice.
John Ward's lonely vigil outside the court ended today when he was called to give evidence for the first time. He told the inquest how he had to arrange the aerial search for his daughter because the police had failed to act, and how he first learned the awful truth about his daughter. John Ward described to the court how he found a lock of hair in the fire. He picked it up and realized for the first time that the scattered remains around him were his daughter, Julie. David Chater, News at 10 in Nairobi.
Here, Michael Knighton, the property developer trying to buy Manchester United Football Club, has confirmed that the takeover will go ahead.
Just 6 hours before the deadline expired for United's new owners to find the money, Mr. Knighton emerged exhausted but evidently relieved that fresh finance had been secured.
Needless to say, I'm absolutely delighted.
I have to say that. Now, I must pay tribute to every single person that's been involved in this. They've been magnificent. And I'm very grateful. Because to obviously achieve what we've done in 4 days as opposed to the 3 months that I've been at it before has been magnificent.
Ever since the football-crazy property tycoon appeared as the surprise purchaser of United a month ago, there's been intense press speculation about where the money was coming from. Records showed he owned St David's private school in Huddersfield, but there was little other information. When his original partners pulled out, the United deal had looked in jeopardy.
Clearly, with only 3 working days to go, before one really had to make a concrete decision, then there was a degree of pressure there. Did it ever seriously jeopardise the deal? Not in my opinion.
As United arrived for tonight's game, its owner insisted he was the sole purchaser. Its former owner said he was completely happy with the deal.
My understanding is that I've just been informed now the deal has gone through.
Are you quite happy with the outcome of the deal?
Yes.
And as far as you know, there's no more hiccups to come?
As far as I know, no.
Mr Knighton arrived in time to see the second half of tonight's game. His main worry now, to get a good return on the immense investment in new players. Mark Webster, News at 10, Manchester United.
Soccer, 3 games in Scotland and England tonight are on News at 10, or on ITV after News at 10. Otherwise, Charlton 3, Hereford 1, 4th Division Exeter 3, 2nd Division Blackburn without their goalkeeper 0, Middlesbrough 4, Halifax 0, Norwich 1, 3rd Division Rotherham 1, Forest 1, 3rd Division Huddersfield 1, QPR 2, Stockport 1, Wednesday 0, 4th Division Aldershot 0, Spurs 1 after 74 minutes, Southend 0, West Brom 1, Bradford 3, York 0, Southampton 1.
And the main points again, Mr Gorbachev has sacked 3 members of his ruling Politburo, and the European Commission has announced it will take Britain to court over our drinking water standards.
And that's it tonight. Good night.
Good evening, Marge. You've no doubt seen on the news Hurricane Hugo's still afresh, I'm afraid. There he was at 6 o'clock this morning, just to the north of the Turks and Caicos Islands. Over the next few days, he's likely to continue to drift northwestward. The worst of the wind should miss the Bahamas, but the high seas that hurricanes tend to generate is likely to lead to flooding, particularly near the coast. Now, closer to home, we've a band of cloud and rain to deal with. Here it was just about an hour ago. During the night, it doesn't move very far. It goes a little bit further north for a time, and later on it comes a little bit further south. By the end of the night, back where it started. Tomorrow then, still not going very far, sticking roughly in the same place up through Ireland and central and eastern Scotland. It lies a little bit further north from time to time. To the north of that band, brighter though, but still with showers. England and Wales are going to enjoy another fine day, a good deal of sunshine. Rest of the sunshine probably down in that southeastern corner. Late in the day though, I think we tend to find it clouding over a little bit. You might see the odd shower in the southeast. We also see a little bit of rain coming in towards the southwestern corner of England. Now, temperatures tomorrow with loads of sunshine, top temperature around 26, a tremendous 79 degrees Fahrenheit, and really 70 or greater over much of England and Wales. Over the winds dying away over Scotland and Northern Ireland, a little more comfortable, top around 16, 61 Fahrenheit. That's it. Here's the summary.
Good evening. A family owe their lives to a pub landlord who rescued them when their car plunged into a canal. The car ran off the road into the Still at the scene of 3 similar accidents. Natalie Gray reports.
It's hard to believe that anyone could have survived such a crash. But Mary Hall and her 2 children, 5-year-old Alexandra and Louise, who's 8, and their grandfather John Todd, were all pulled to safety just seconds before the car sank. No one's sure how this, the latest in a spate of accidents at this spot, happened, but it appears Mrs. Hall was driving around this bend when she lost control and skidded into the water. Their Mercedes is a virtual write-off, but the family are all right, thanks to the local pub landlord, who raced to their rescue in a rowing boat.
Children were standing on the back street. The gentleman was still trying to smoke his pipe, but that's the way it looked. He had his pipe quenched in his teeth. The lady was just holding onto the wheel, sort of soaking, obviously in a distressed state.
Meanwhile, at their home in Burden tonight, The Halls didn't want to talk about the incident. Natalie Gray, West Sussex.
One of the South's biggest mental hospitals has been heavily criticised in a report published today. Fairmile Hospital has already closed 50 beds because it can't get enough staff. Nigel Burwood reports.
This is the only psychiatric hospital for the huge population around Reading, but it's in crisis. Its facilities are out of date and more staff are leaving. We were only allowed to film part of the Victorian building, which, according to a health service report, needs a lot of money spending on it to maintain the service to patients. The report says that members of West Berkshire Health Authority should take a close interest in Fairmile Hospital and its standards to make sure they don't get any worse between now and the time it finally closes down. There's still no definite date for closure, and the staff shortage is now desperate. 30 have left in recent months, forcing management to make cuts.
We're extremely concerned. I mean, in itself, the staff are the lifeblood of the hospital. And whatever our new vision of the service and the length of time that it might take to get new services on the ground, gradually the hospital is shutting itself as staff leave.
So time is rapidly running out for Fairmile Hospital. The health authority say all they can do is speed up plans for moving patients out into the community.
Police have released dramatic pictures of an armed robbery in Sussex. A man threatened staff with a handgun at a building society in Haywood Heath. The raider escaped with more than £2,000. Firemen have been fighting a blaze in a flat at Cocknor in Portsmouth. It broke out above a shop in Tangier Road. The flat was badly damaged, but no one was hurt. Football, and in the Littlewoods Cup, Southampton beat York City 1-0. Aldershot drew 0-0 against Sheffield Wednesday. And highlights of the Portsmouth match can be seen at 11:20 tonight. For now, a look at the weather with Carl Tyler.
Good evening. Well, dry and clear again tonight, but there's a little bit more moisture in the air, so I think some mist patches around that dawn period. Temperature-wise, a mild night, only falling to 11, that's a low of 50 Fahrenheit. Now, the chart coming in tomorrow, that shows some changes. The low pressure's gone. We've still got the old front line to the north of us. We're not going to see that until late on Friday. The isobars are coming apart, so light winds should change to go along with the sunshine. Tomorrow morning, then, that mist going quite quickly, and a good deal of sunshine right the way through the morning. Into the afternoon, well, a little bit of fair weather cloud building up, but still long sunny spells. Your best temperatures, 24, mid-70s. So to summarise then, it's going to be very warm with a good deal of sunshine and only light winds.
Well, that's all from the TVS newsroom tonight. There'll be more from us at 9:55 tomorrow. Good night.